Welcome to Wonder Fungi. Today, we're going to cut through all the noise, the marketing, the stigma, all the social norms, and just look at the hard data. We're putting two really significant substances head-to-head, alcohol and psilocybin mushrooms, to see what the science actually has to say about which one is safer.
It's a pretty wild paradox when you think about it, isn't it? One is so normal it's advertised during the biggest sporting event of the year. The other could literally land you in jail. But which one, when you look at the cold, hard science, is truly the safer substance? Well, the answer might just surprise you.
And this really gets to the heart of this cultural paradox. On one hand, you have alcohol, a multi-billion-dollar industry that's just woven into the fabric of our social lives. On the other, you've got psilocybin, which is legally classified as a Schedule I substance. You know, the category for drugs with a high potential for abuse and no medical use.
So the big question is, do these labels and our social attitudes actually line up with the scientific evidence? To figure that out, we have to push aside our preconceived notions and just look at the actual measurable harm. And lucky for us, a landmark scientific study did exactly that.
Back in 2010, the super prestigious medical journal, The Lancet, published this absolute bombshell of a study. And listen, this wasn't just some opinion piece. This was a super rigorous analysis by the Independent Scientific Committee on Drugs in the UK. They used this complex method to create the most rational, evidence-based ranking of drug harms ever done. So how'd they do it? Well, this team of experts took 20 different substances, everything from heroin to tobacco, and scored them across 16 different criteria. And this wasn't just about harm to the person using it. It also measured harm to others, things like crime, family problems, even the economic cost to the country. It was a really comprehensive look at the total impact. And the results? Whoa. They were nothing short of staggering. Out of a possible harm score of 100, alcohol came in at number one, with a score of 72. That's more harmful than heroin or crack cocaine. And psilocybin mushrooms, they were way down at the very bottom of the list, with a total harm score of just 6. Okay, so this raises a huge question. How is that even possible? How can a legal, everyday substance be so much more harmful than one that's outlawed? To really get it, we need to break down two of the biggest factors that went into that harm score: toxicity and the potential for addiction. All right, let's tackle the first piece of this puzzle, toxicity. We're talking about the most direct kind of harm you can imagine, the actual risk of a fatal overdose from just taking too much at once. To measure this risk, scientists use a standard called the lethal dose, or LD50. It sounds a little grim, I know, but it's a super important metric. It's the dose of something that would be fatal for half of a test population. What's really key here isn't just the lethal dose itself, but how close it is to the effective dose, the amount people actually take. And this right here is where the difference is just night and day. For alcohol, the lethal dose is only about 10 times the amount in a few standard drinks. That is a dangerously small safety margin, and it's why alcohol poisoning is tragically so common. Now, for psilocybin mushrooms, the lethal dose is estimated to be 1,000 times the effective dose. The safety margin is so huge, it's almost physiologically impossible to have a fatal overdose. And this isn't just theory, The real-world data totally backs this up. The Global Drug Survey found that only 0.2% of people who used psilocybin reported needing emergency medical treatment. That tiny number makes it the safest recreational drug they studied, way safer than stuff like MDMA, LSD, or cocaine. The data just couldn't be clearer. Okay, so let's move on to the second major factor, addiction. The potential for dependence is obviously a huge driver of long-term harm. So what is it that makes our brains get hooked on one of these but not the other? Well, the answer is all in their brain chemistry, which is completely different. Alcohol gives you this dopamine hit in your brain's reward circuit. That feeling acts like a chemical hook, telling your brain, hey, do that again, which creates a really strong potential for dependence. Psilocybin, on the other hand, works mainly on serotonin receptors. It doesn't create that same dopamine loop. In fact, your brain builds up a tolerance to it so fast that it's actually really hard to abuse it compulsively. So to put it as simply as possible, alcohol's chemistry is basically designed to encourage you to use it again and again. Psilocybin's chemistry does the exact opposite. It discourages it. It just isn't rewarding in that same addictive way, which gives it almost zero potential for creating dependence. So when you take all this data on toxicity, on addiction, on overall harm, it brings us right back to that bizarre paradox we started with. If the science is this clear, why on earth is there such a massive disconnect with our laws and what society considers normal? This quote from researcher Professor Robert Gable just hits the nail on the head. He says if alcohol were invented today, its high toxicity and addiction potential would almost certainly stop it from ever being approved for sale. It really only gets a pass because of its long history and cultural baggage. And that leaves us with this one big final question. If our laws and our social attitudes aren't based on a rational scientific assessment of harm, then what are they based on? It's a question that really forces us to look past the headlines and challenge the difference between what we feel is risky versus what the data actually shows is harmful. Look at the data, question the stigma. Please like and subscribe to Wonder Fungi for more science.